This is an exclusive presentation from Federated Media. Unholstered.
What's an interesting, unplanned episode of Unholstered we have for you today. Welcome on in here to Unholstered. I am one of your hosts, Kayla Blakesley.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sophia Rosales-Scatina, and I am a captain with Fort Wayne Police Department. Welcome back to the show.
So Sophia obviously represents the side of policing. I represent the side of local media, and together we have joined forces to share and tell all of the stories that don't often get told when it comes to policing, not only here in our community, but really across the country. And Sophia, my heart is deeply saddened because after today's episode, I'm not really sure what's going to happen to this show.
You're not the only one.
I don't know whether we call this a farewell episode or not. I'm not going to, because my fingers, my legs, arms, everything's crossed that we can still manage to do something together after this weekend. But what I'm going to do is actually pass the mic to you and our special guest that you brought, I'm going to say back in studio, because
Yes.
he's been here now multiple times at this point, to share and tell, as I just said, what's going on with you.
Thank you. Yeah, my heart's broken too, honestly, if I'm being truthful, and I always am. After this weekend, I will be moved from my position as Southeast Captain and Community Relations Captain. I will be moving over to the Northeast Quadrant of Fort Wayne, just as a captain. So I will no longer be involved in community relations or engagement or anything like that for anything other than the Northeast side of town. I just found this out, probably a week and a half ago. I got a phone call and they let me know.
It was a phone call.
It was a phone call.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Our assistant chief called me. And I mean, I knew it was coming because I heard the rumors first. And then, you don't believe the rumors because there was movement that I was very shocked about, and I'll leave that up to our guests to explain that. But then, I'm like, Northeast, I said, I don't know that I've ever worked Northeast in my entire career. I think I did 2 hire backs Northeast when I was like maybe 10 years on. But my entire career has been in the south part of Fort Wayne, either southwest or southeast. Except for like a year after my husband died, I had to move to day shift northwest, and that was the open spot because of childcare. But I mean, my whole life has been devoted to South Fort Wayne. So this is going to be new. It's going to be a learning curve. Northeast just isn't my jam.
Right.
I'm not familiar with it. So I hope it works out well, and I'll give it my best no matter where I am.
So when you got this phone call from the assistant chief, I just want people to understand this. You don't really have a say in this, right?
I don't. My position is appointed.
Right.
My merit rank is sergeant, so that's what I've tested to and received merit-based, which means they can't take that away without due cause, but they can move us from the positions of captain, deputy chief, assistant chief, and chief. Those
I know
are all appointed.
we've talked about appointed positions before here on
Yes.
the show, but for someone who's not heard that episode, or maybe they're like, I still don't get it. What's an appointed position? So what is that, Sophia?
So we have different positions in the department. There's patrol officer, then you test and you make sergeant if you pass. Then as sergeant, you can test and go to lieutenant position. Anything above a lieutenant's position, which would be captain, deputy chief, assistant chief, and chief, those 4 positions are appointed. So you're appointed by the chief into those positions from your merit rank. You always hold your merit rank. So if something were to say you did something wrong, they didn't like it, they moved you back to your merit rank. Then you go back to that sergeant or lieutenant if that's what you were before you were promoted or appointed to the new position.
So, and again, Sophia, I don't want to put you in a compromising position. I don't want to put you in a place that would jeopardize your roles within the Fort Wayne Police Department. But does it feel, I know it's not maybe technically a demotion. I suppose the community relations is being taken off of that, but is this a demotion, or how do you see this or view this?
It's a lateral move position on the technical side. But my true feeling about it is, you're taking something away from me that I love, and I think I do well. Just sharing and making relationships and sharing information about our department and being engaged in community, being engaged with people. I thought I did that well. So when you obviously when you move someone out of a position that they think they're doing well, I've never had anyone tell me I wasn't doing it well. So it's just, I guess it's more of a shock
Yeah.
than anything.
That would be like me. I host a news talk radio program 5 days a week, Monday through Friday on WoWo. And that would be like, hey, we're moving you down the hall to a music radio station. It would be a lateral move, but that would not be where my heartbeat is at.
Right.
My heartbeat is in politics and in news, not in
Right.
playing music.
Right.
So that's kind of what
It's kind of what it feels.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like that's a good analogy for it. But I'm going to make the best out of the position Northeast. I realize that
Good for
I've
you.
been in an appointed position. I get it. It's not my decision, not my choice. So, at this point, I have 4 years left in my career. So I'm really.
You mean until you retire?
Yeah,
Is that-
until I retire. So I can do that
Technically-
anywhere.
So then technically, though, a demotion would have been going back to merit, right?
Merit
To your
rank, yes.
rank.
That would
Okay.
have been my demotion would be a merit rank.
Obviously, I think the number one question that people would want me to ask you is the why this is happening. And I'm not expecting you to answer that right now, Sophia, because we've also got someone else that you brought in who we've had on the show many times, who is
Yes.
also kind of dealing with something similarly.
Right. And I brought him on not to expressly for that reason, but because, he's been the other half of almost everything I've done in the past few years with Southeastern Community Relations. And, he's been a champion for me. He's been someone that has encouraged and supported me and even supported doing the show. He's been my last minute fill-in. I don't know how many times when I'm like, I don't have a topic. What can you talk about? I have a lot of respect and admiration for him, just as he's been my boss and just been someone who has encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone at times and take on things that I probably would have been reluctant to take on. And I just wanted to give him an opportunity because he's been a big part of this show, even though he hasn't been the one talking like I have, because he's been the one that supported it and supported me doing it.
He's like our producer on the sidelines.
He's like on the police side. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So without further ado, who'd you bring back?
We'll let him introduce himself.
Well, good to be back. This is Mitch McKinney here for the last time on this part of the show. I'm sure they're going to keep rocking and rolling somehow. But thanks for having me again.
I don't know. Can we? What do we say, Mitch? Deputy Chief, former Deputy Chief with the Fort Wayne Police Department?
Former Deputy Chief, because as of tomorrow, I will be back to my sergeant rank, my merit rank. So I start Sunday, my merit rank, and I'll go to Northwest, so I'll spend some time in the zoo.
You laugh, but that is a part of training when you
really?
work
Is it
Northwest
really?
because
Might have to put down a puma.
yeah.
Oh, I thought that was like I don't know. I thought
No,
it was a
that-
joke.
I love the
Mitch, but
zoo.
okay.
No, and
Yeah.
Funky Park Day Camp. That's where I grew up. So that's back in my zone as well. So I love that part of town. But, it's just part of what happens when you're in an appointed position. And sometimes politics gets in the way of policing. And that's how we'd make better policing if we can just remove politics from it.
Yeah, amen to that. Again, I don't want to put either of you in a compromising position because I respect that you both do still work for the Fort Wayne Police Department, but yet both of you have been moved in your positions. And I'm just going to say it. You don't have to say it, Mitch. By the sounds, yours was a bit of a demotion, going back to that merit rank. But I obviously I want to ask the question why. I don't even know if you're really allowed to answer the question why. I guess what can you tell us?
Well, I was president of Fraternal Order Police last year, and this all, in my opinion only, I know the position you can be removed from a merit position or from a appointed position anytime, but it all stemmed back to a candidate's night back at the FOP when I was president, when the former administration just wasn't allowed to participate because they didn't follow the rules. And it's been a different flavor for me in my position ever since then. And I give kudos to Chief Steve Reed and I give kudos to Chief Scott Cardell because they stuck with me until they knew they couldn't. Steve retired, Scott took over. And it's one of those things where, that comes down from the mayor's office and then they bring it down to me. And on July 24th, the assistant chief gave me the news that I was going back to my merit rank.
June 24th. June 24th.
June 24th.
I mean, June 24th. June 24th,
So
yes.
Sophia got a phone call from the assistant chief. You got notified as well by the assistant
I did,
chief.
in my office. Mm-hmm.
I'll just let people think of that what they want. We don't need to say anything about that.
Yeah.
were you guys the only two that got, I'm going to say moved, rearranged, or were there others? Or are there others being moved or rearranged?
Not rearranged. Some are moving up. There's people, obviously someone got the deputy chief's position, is getting the deputy chief's position. Someone's getting the community relations division and position, and someone is getting my Southeast captain
Southeast
position.
quadrant, yeah. So.
Yeah, and kudos to them. You know, it's when you get offered positions, you know, I don't expect them to look back at my situation and say I should or shouldn't take something. You know, if it gets presented to you and it's where you want to go, go. But the whole thing is that when I go, I go. And so I have a new focus. I have a new energy. I have a new group of people. Same as Sophia going northwest. I worked northwest in patrol, you know, a couple of times. So I know the area over there as well. And it's one of those things where you go there, you get with your people, and you get to work.
It sounds like both of you are embracing the changes.
Absolutely. We work for the citizens of Fort Wayne.
Has this happened before, or do you guys know that if this has ever happened before?
Not in my 24 and a half years.
Not in my 30. No.
So it puts me back in my opinion position that no one's going to present any facts different, that this stems all the way back to that candidate's night at the FOP Lodge. Someone's carrying that torch and that burden and that grudge to make sure it happened.
Hypothetically, and I'm going to keep saying this as the disclaimer, don't want to put either of you in a position that you don't want to be or talk about something that you can't talk about, so just say it. But hypothetically, couldn't our current mayor put a stop to doing this, or say, hey, no, we're not going to move Sophia, we're not going to move Mitch? Or couldn't the chief, I mean, how does that work? Does the chief have to agree to all of these things as well?
It's appointed through the mayor's office.
Okay.
These are all in appointed positions,
Yeah.
and I won't lay anything at totally anyone's feet.
Exactly.
This is just what it is.
Yes.
And we know that going in, that these are appointed positions, and at any time, even though it's never happened before, they can be taken from you.
That's right.
Just because. It might be because I have black hair, not blonde. It might be, I don't know.
I have no hair.
And they don't need a reason, right? It's just an appointment. And so, I hate the phrase, it is what it is, but that's what it is.
But it kind of is what it is.
Yeah. And, and for those of you who don't understand why the show has to stop in the manner in which we do it, because I am no longer the community relations captain. I do not have authority to speak on behalf of the department because I no longer have that title. So I'm not the PIO anymore, so that's a department spokesperson. But with community relations, I could, because it's relational, go out and present information, ask people to come on and kind of, be a little more transparent with our department, because that was part of making relationships with the community.
Right.
But since I'm no longer in that position anymore, I do not have the authority per policy to speak like that. So that is why this show, me being the captain of the Fort Wayne, a captain of Southeast Division Community Relations for the Fort Wayne Police Department, has to end.
Well, here's what I'm wondering, Sophia, because I don't also know if people know this. As Mitch mentioned, he was the president of the FOP here in Fort Wayne. That ended, last year, at the end of last year?
I passed the torch to her in December. She was elected in November and swore her in January.
Yeah, so you are now the current president of the FOP.
Yes.
Is there something we can do with that, Sophia?
We probably can do something with that. It will not be specific. It will not resemble the show as the Fort Wayne Police Department, because I do not have the authority to speak on that. However, we can speak to general topics of policing, and I can do that as the president of the Fraternal Order of Police.
Absolutely.
For Indiana Wayne Lodge 14. So if there's a police issue not specific to the Fort Wayne Police Department, I would be able to speak on that. So the show could look a little different, and we'd have to really sit down and see what that looks like.
I'm sure listeners can tell right now that this is all
organic conversation. Nobody knew what anyone was going to say. I just asked her to give me 2 minutes at the end of the show to say something.
I'm just refusing to accept. So true story. So listeners know this. I'm on vacation. I'm in Alaska, having the time of my life, and I get this text from Sophia, who has to ruin my mood, telling me that her position's been changed within the Fort Wayne Police Department, and we're no longer going to be able to do Unholstered. And I, even since the moment I got that text, even to now, Sophia, I'm still like, I just will not admit that this is a farewell show just yet. I'm refusing to admit that this is a farewell
Amen.
show.
And we may be able to shake it out some other way.
Yeah, I feel like we've got to shake something out, even if it's on my program on WOWO, on Fort Wayne's Morning News. Maybe you join me there and talk about policing in general. I don't know,
Yeah.
we could call it policing in general.
I just got to say this, though, because you came to me was going to be 3 years this year, right?
Yeah.
3 years ago, with this whole idea, and really gave me the platform to talk about my career, my job, and the jobs of hundreds of thousands of other men and women throughout this nation who put on a uniform every day, go out and serve their communities, regardless of what happened the day before. Mm-hmm. Regardless if an officer was injured, regardless if an officer was shot and killed or run over by a car, or regardless of the names they're called, they do this job every day. And you've given me the platform to come on here and be transparent about this job and be factual about what it is and what it is not. And I cannot give you enough thanks for allowing me to do that. This is where my passion is. It's policing, period. I just got back from a 3-day training down in Indianapolis, and it was put on by Concerns of Police Survivors, and it was traumas in law enforcement. So we talked about the stresses of the job, the traumas of the job, how to deal with them, how to maneuver, when do you ask for help, how do you help? Second day was line of duty deaths. Like, what do you do if someone in your department dies or is injured? And, how do you fill out paperwork, and who do you turn to help with these things? And the third day was police suicide, because we know suicide is the biggest killer of police more than anything. And that is where my passion lies, right? In police wellness. It always has. Ever since I struggled years ago, I've been on this wagon of just trying to push people to just be well in this job, because I know this job takes so much away from you. And I can sit here every day and say, I haven't changed, but everyone around me can tell you I've changed in 30 years. It will be 30 years, August 26th. So thank you. And thank you to our listeners, because without them, the show would have been nothing. Yeah. And they have given us feedback that we've taken, we've used.
Some of it we've not liked.
Yes, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
That's absolutely okay. But they've listened, they've asked questions, they've engaged me on the street. Sometimes I'll go and I'll be introduced. I'm like, oh my God, you're unholstered. I'm like, yes. And then we'll get to talking. We just met with a church group downtown, and he went off to a group of them. I went off to another one, and this gentleman came in late, and, I introduced myself, and he goes, oh my God, I love your show. So that kind of feedback really tells me that you're listening. The amount of people after our last police involved shooting that said, hey, I want to wait until I see everything. Yeah. Man, that is leaps and bounds from where we were just 3 years ago.
It is.
So I don't know if it's this show. I don't know if it's just people.
We're going to say it's the show.
I'm going to say it's the show. But regardless of what it is, I think people are listening, and they're just waiting for all the facts to come out. And that, for me, has been worth every moment.
For folks who don't know it, I'm thankful that you said yes to this crazy idea. Because for folks who don't know it, I never actually met Sophia in person. Mitch, I don't even know if you know that. I'd stuck a microphone probably in your face way back in the day, called you for sound bites over the phone, had you on for interviews because you were the public information officer for the Fort Wayne Police Department. So you were the spokesperson for whatever case or what was going on in the area. And so I called you randomly one day and I said, hey, it's Kayla from WOWO. I have this really crazy idea. I want to start a weekend show. At the time I told her, I don't even have a name for it, Sophia. I don't even know how long it's going to be. I don't know. I didn't really know anything other than in my bones, I knew I had to do something to try and change the rhetoric around policing at the time. Because this would have been end of 2020 going into 2021. And just really wanted to try and flip that script and change how people were viewing police officers at that time, and quite frankly still do today. And you on the phone immediately said yes. I mean, again, no title, didn't know when we were going to record, didn't really even know what topics were going to be, didn't know anything, but you said yes.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, who does that? And
well, you offered me an opportunity to talk about what I'm passionate about, which is policing. So thank you.
Well, again, big thank you to you. Big thank you to Mitch, because Mitch, you've come on multiple times, and I think everyone always says after you've been on, we always hear, well, if the whole policing thing doesn't work out for Mitch, he's got a career in radio with that voice.
Meaningful Minutes with Mitch is coming at you.
Oh, I like that. I like that. So, Sophia, I know you had asked to have the last couple of minutes of the show to read something.
Yes. While I was down at my training this week, I won a raffle. And part of the raffle was...
Congratulations.
I know, right? I feel like I don't win much, but Mitch will say differently, that I win all the time. But I in this raffle package, I got a book. And it's called Dear Officer. And it's comprised of letters that some people have written. Elizabeth Shiftwell, Mike Edwards, and Sloan Jacobs. That's who these letters are from. But when I opened up the book and I read it, I started crying, because to me this encompasses what this program was about, and knowing that I was going to come back and do this quote unquote last show,
which I'm refusing to call it that.
Yes,
but yes.
But it was everything that we wanted were in these words. Now I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I have like 3 paragraphs that I do want to read. It's about 2 minutes long, and I think it just encompasses everything that we tried to do here and what I feel that this show has given me. So it says, Dear Officer, I want you to know that I see you. I see you choose the booth in the restaurant that allows you to have your back against the wall. I see you walking to your next traffic stop while you hope it isn't your last. I see you pull over 2 hours past your shift as you finish your reports under a streetlight. I see you as you direct traffic in the scorching heat, the gusting snow, and the downpour of rain. I see you being filmed every time you try to do your job. I see you as you watch mainstream media crucify your character while minimizing your cause. I see you are tired. I see you are frustrated and misunderstood. I see you are hurting as the world watches you bury your brothers and sisters that died because they were guilty of one thing, wearing a uniform with a badge. I see you. I see that you are flesh and bones just like me. I see that you are a human being who has a heart that beats for your calling to serve and protect. I see your cause, and I want you to know I appreciate it. I need you. We need you. America needs you. I know that the world isn't making it any easier for you to wake up with the same passion you had when you first started. I know the world is making it extremely difficult for you to feel like anyone is on your side. I know the world is making you feel like the only allies that you can have can only be found in each other. I know that it is becoming increasingly more difficult to put your life on the line for a world that has seemingly turned its back on you. But I also know that won't stop you. What the world seems to forget is that you don't suit up every day for their approval. You don't put your life on the line so people will sing your praises from the mountaintops. God knows you don't do it for the money. You do it because it's your calling. You do it for the generations to come. You do it for the safety of those who do not have the means to protect themselves. You do it because you believe that you can help goodness persevere in the face of evil. You've chosen to be a warrior, and warriors don't hang up their hats because of the opinions of others. I wish I knew how to fix it. The only thing I know how to do is support you. I'm aware there isn't a magic solution that will make the world see you for who you are, the amazing men and women in blue. I just want you to know that I see you. I need you to know that you're appreciated by a vast majority who is in your corner. And I need you to know that you're not alone. You are honorable, you're courageous, and you are worthy of a nation's support. We see you, we need you, we love you. Thank you for your service, thank you for your sacrifice, and thank you for getting up again today to protect my family. You are undeniably my heroes. I love you all.
Man, no wonder it brought you to tears. Had you heard that before, Mitch?
Yeah, I stuck a tissue in my pocket just in case.
Have you heard that, or did you read that?
I have heard that before because I serve as the Northeast trustee for Indiana cops. So I do a lot of work with trauma in law enforcement.
Man, I couldn't agree with all of those.
Yeah.
But that's why the show
words.
was put on, right? And
Yeah.
This is what our message has been.
Well, I feel like I can speak for all of us at WOWO that we love our police officers. We thank you so much for your service. Thank you for your time here on this show. And you too, Mitch, because you've had several appearances. Like Sophia said, you're pretty much a member of the Unholstered team here. What I want to do to wrap up is play the 2-minute promo that we first created when we first started this show, Sophia, because it also really encompasses, I feel like, what we've been able to share and tell and do here on Unholstered. So I want to end by playing that, because I'd love to say and tell you what's coming up next weekend, but I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen to the show. So I'm just going to say, stay tuned.
Police officers, they often get a bad rap, primarily because people, social media, and the news only highly publicize negative interactions.
Officer David Dukes was fired and charged with felony assault and battery.
Excessive force can never be an acceptable foundation for the policing of any community.
Officer Kevin Perez kicked Crudup several times and slammed his head to the ground.
It's disappointing, after a year unlike any other, that we still discredit some of our bravest men and women. Enough is enough. It's time we stand up and back the blue. I am Kayla Blakesley, a local member of the media and radio personality.
And I am Sophia Rosales-Catina, captain with the Fort Wayne Police Department. Together we are joining forces to bring you Unholstered.
An in-depth look at all the stories, events, and topics that show how our officers serve and fight for our community every single day.
When we saw the car up in flames, we saw the 2 kids in the back unconscious. We knew that we had to get them out.
And no topics are off limits.
On that day, I participated in the defense of the United States Capitol from an armed mob.
He's shooting at the cops right now. We're backing up.
A 6th grade female student fired multiple rounds.
Who are black people supposed to call? Ghostbusters? When we have crime in our neighborhoods, we need police reform.
Plus, we'll give you an intimate look into the unheard stories that only officers themselves can share.
From saving lives,
Officer Michael, in heroic fashion, returned fire, even in the midst of being shot himself,
to soul-crushing losses.
This is a raw scene, and this is a raw emotional outpouring of hurt by your police department and by your first responders.
And every incredible moment in between.
Thank God there's a school resource officer there to handle and de-escalate the situation so nobody is hurt.
We're giving you an unfiltered look at some of the bravest men and women on Earth.
So join us for a show unlike any other and hear from your police officers like you've never heard them before.
Your town, your topics, your team. This is Unholstered.
Podcasts by Federated Media.